What are the strangest house rules you've seen in a person's house? At one of my ex-girlfriend's house on Christmas Day, both myself and my girlfriend's sister's boyfriend were told to go down into the basement while the rest of their extended and immediate family opened presents. I had never met this guy before, and we were the only two people down there. All because the older members of the family didn't want outsiders to see what they had bought their relatives. Did they think we were going to steal something? There were something like 35 people in the house. So while I thought we would only be shunned for a few minutes, we ended up staying in the basement for 2 hours before my girlfriend called us back upstairs. Apparently the guy I was stranded with had been there for multiple Christmas celebrations and was usually told to just go sit by himself. This was a normal thing for this family. Jokes on them. Though I had a much better time playing pool with the guy than I ever would have interacting with their family, who I came to discover over time were really bitter, uncaring people. I babysat for a family that locked us in the house. I called my dad, and he said if I felt trapped I could throw a chair through a window and he'd cover it, no questions asked. Never babysit for them again. My step-grandmother does not let anyone under 16, what she considers children, sit on her furniture. They have to sit on the floor. It should be noted that this rule didn't apply to her biological grandchildren. Had a friend that had to go to bed at 7 PM every night because that was the bedtime for his younger siblings. He was 14. His mom would flip out if he tried to stay awake any longer. She wouldn't actually let us into the house. She threw a housewarming party and we were all excited about attending. But instead she herded us all into her garage and locked us in there. There was a door in the garage that led into the kitchen that she would only unlock if someone wanted the bathroom. She would then escort the person to the toilet and stand outside the door until they were done. Take them back to the garage and lock the door again. The garage was empty as well. Not even so much as a deck chair or box to sit on. The guests did not stay along. I left in under an hour and the rest not long after. She was offended after she put so much effort into having us over. I landed a summer babysitting job when I was 15 or 16 and got yelled at because I took Cheetos, Doritos and pretzels and put them all in the same bowl. They were snack-sized bags and I'd eaten the whole bowl full, but there must have been crumb evidence for Sherlock Mom. She said we don't mix our food in this house. And then she fired me soon after because she said she wasn't comfortable with me doing stuff like that around her kids. A friend I visited a few times when I was a kid had really strange parents. One weird thing was when my mum called his mum to arrange a time. His mum said that she'd like it if I brought a shirt I'd already worn to their house. She said they had a rescue dog that lost its crap around new people and would keep it in the bathroom for my first visit. Then put my shirt in its bed so it got used to my scent for next time. I freaking did it too. Dog still went nuts. There were wacky bathroom rules. Like if I had to go she'd say 1 or 2. Then she would carefully count the number of squares and hand it to me. This was particularly embarrassing since I had a little crush on my friend and he was always there to see me say what I had to do. It was never enough. I always ended up poking a finger through the TP and they never had soap. I had to wash my freaking hands with shampoo. Once it was dog shampoo. Lol, I hated it there. No speaking above what was essentially a whispered volume. Girlfriend's father considered loud talking what the rest of us considered normal volume talking to be trashy. I had a friend whose parents would lock her in her room at night. As in, the lock was on the outside of the door and once she was in for the night the door was locked and there was no leaving. Even for the bathroom. Holy crap. Okay, some clarity. I think I was like 8. So I don't know if kinky sex was involved. This was the 80s, so it wasn't as frowned upon. Plus, as many of you say, sometimes there's a reason for it. I didn't know these kids very well at all and didn't get to know them beyond this weird thing with the doors. All I remember was that the door was locked at night once they were in for bed. I remember asking about the bathroom and I feel like she was just like we go before bed. I always woke up in the middle of the night to go, so it stuck with me. She obviously saw nothing weird about it. I can't remember if I slept over, but I was a huge chicken and hated sleeping over other people's houses, so I don't think I did. I do remember being frightened about fires happening though BC it was a fear of mine that I would be away from my family and either they would die and leave me alone or I would die and leave them. IDK. I was weird. She and her family were weird and I didn't hang out with her for very long. I think they only stayed in my neighborhood a few years before moving. Whenever I went over to a friend's house, I wasn't ever actually allowed inside. Instead we always hung out in a trailer that was parked right outside of his place, and if we needed to use a bathroom the mother forced us to go in a bucket. I once had a friend's mom tell me we sit down to pee in this house. I guess I get it, and it would have made sense other than I'm a girl. How the hell did she think I took a leak? The parents of a girl I dated in high school had the rule of after 5 or 6. It varied. Usually after dinner. Lock yourselves in your rooms. So for most of the night her and her little sister were just locked in their rooms, only allowed to leave to use the bathroom. Before bed on a school night they'd get called downstairs for any last things they needed before bed. I never liked that family. My friend's mom was convinced that vomit corroded the pipes and could cause them to burst, so we had to go puke outside if we were sick. My cousin's house, when I was a kid there was a no reading during the day rule. I was a bookish kid terrified of my mad uncle, so I just went along with it. Not sure if it counts as a house rule, but I had a good friend whose family didn't drink anything while eating meals. They were convinced drinking something right after chewing food would crack their teeth, so I'd always be the only one with a beverage at dinner. My friend's mom wouldn't let you have a drink at the dinner table because she didn't want you to fill up on water and not finish your food. It didn't matter what it was or if you choked. No liquid until after dinner. She would also make you eat everything, or she would save it for you to finish later or just wouldn't let you leave the table until you were done. I grew up in Mexico. My school had a lot of exchange programs abroad. So in 9th grade, I went to Boston. I stayed with a guy from the HS and his dad. Pretty weird family. But the strangest thing was that his father told me that I could not flush pancakes in the toilet. He literally meant pancakes. It was not a euphemism. Because I asked his son about it, and he said yeah, there was an incident once. Growing up, myself, and often with other friends, would do sleepovers at a buddy's house. He was a bedwetter and wore diapers to bed. But we were cool with it. Never any teasing or anything. His mother would demand that we all wear diapers to bed when sleeping over, which was odd. But it made our buddy even more uncomfortable about his situation. Poor dude would apologize constantly about the fact that we had to use them too. Anytime I was over at their house and we would go outside and play, I would have to knock on the door each time to come back in. Even if I had been there for a while, or if I had just walked in with their kid. Their mother kept tabs on exactly how much I ate or drank while I was there and expected me to work for whatever they had given me. I had accidentally left something by the door and I realized after I got a few steps away from their porch, so I just opened the door and reached in to grab it. Her mother grabbed my arm and jerked me back into the house and screamed how I was a guest at their house and that I was to always knock before entering. How I was a rude child. She didn't care that I was just there and what I grabbed was mine, etc. I had known this woman my entire life. We lived in the same neighborhood. She knew all of my extended family and treated me like I was some stranger. That was my last day playing over there. My dad had a strict rule, no music with words. I'm still wondering how Beethoven's Ninth ended. I'm a medic, so we go into people's homes every day. We had a cardiac arrest. So we were working a man, and the wife was having a fit about the mess we were making. Yes, there was some garbage from the pads, needles, meds, but we put all of it into our jump bag. She was screaming at us about it. I told her that her husband was very sick, and we were doing everything we could to help. She said she didn't care if he died, as long as we didn't make a mess. My friend's mother absolutely refuses to let guests pour their own drinks. Not just insisting let me pour that for you, but will actually get mad if you do it yourself. This doesn't apply to food. My grandparents had a very specific order that food should be eaten. We are a big English family and tea would be served at 5 PM or so. After lunch at 1 PM. Plates and dishes would be placed on the dining room table all at once, but could only be consumed in the correct order. Sandwiches first, then sausage rolls / assorted savories, then sweet foods. It's only so strange, because after my generation, 16 of us, my grandmother now couldn't give less of a crap, and all the rules are out of the window, especially for great grandchildren and our spouses. We are just pretty bitter that we would get such a telling off for eating a sausage roll before a sandwich, since now apparently you can have chocolate biscuits before 2 p.m. Anarchy. I live with my grandmother and our house has 2 bathrooms. One bathroom is her bathroom exclusively, and the other bathroom is everyone else's bathroom. If you use her bathroom, you're shunned from seeing her or being in her home for life. My cousin and her 3 kids, her great grandchildren, have been banned from seeing my grandmother ever again, because we completely forgot to tell my cousin's ex-husband about the bathroom rule. It's not a loss. Cousin and kids are better off without her. My dad's weird rule was that he would read every text we sent and received. Every week he would collect our phones and read everything. He would also know if we deleted anything, because he would reference text counts and timestamps on the phone bill. Now don't get me wrong. He paid for the phones, so he has the right to take it and give it as he sees fit. However, going through a 14-year-old's phone and reading all of his conversations is beyond invasion of privacy. It's straight up. Just because he owns the phone and pays for the service doesn't mean I should lose all rights to privacy. I'm his son using the phone he bought me, but I was a developing child first exploring emotional development. I deserved the right to have private conversations with the people I chose to trust. With how strict my dad was, I couldn't discuss anything over text. I'd get yelled at for a joke he thought was inappropriate, even if I didn't send it but received it. You shouldn't be talking to people who make jokes like that. They're a bad influence. It was horse crap. No amount of logic or reasoning would convince him to amend the rule. So what did I do? Start sending / receiving 20k messages a month. We had an unlimited text plan, so it cost nothing extra. I would text every person I could all day long. He would be forced to sift through 7k messages a week. I was literally glued to my phone. I'd be talking to so many people that I could sit there for hours and still have messages to respond to. Eventually he just stopped collecting our phones each week. Eat one popcorn at a time. Every freaking time. I only watched 3 movies at his house. Had a babysitter when I was about 8 and my sister was 5. The rule was all day we had to sit on the stairs. No couch, no kitchen table, nothing. Literally had to stay on the stairs the whole day, which was pretty freaking uncomfortable even to my 8-year-old body, and me and my sister were pretty well behaved, so we did it without much question. When my mom would come pick us up and started talking for what seemed like forever, of course, we would get to sit on the couch. Only years later did I realize how weird and crappy that was. My friend's mom was a huge germaphobe, so she kept bottles of hand sanitizer and a stack of napkins by the door, and you had to use them before entering the house. If you didn't, she'd close the door in your face. Also, she required anyone who wanted to pet her dog or cat, you had to brush them before and after to help diminish any harmful human toxins. I once had a sleepover party at a Christian girl's house in elementary. They had random pieces of duct tape on the floor in the hallway, and if I remember correctly we had to jump / step over them because that's where knives were dropped. Kinda like a superstition. Except I didn't get it and it still makes no sense to me to this day. So a few years back I was at a party and the homeowner had a list of house rules on a chalkboard. The one that sort of made me double take was overpass guests are asked not to wank. I was a little confused. I mean, nobody wants to think of someone else jerking it in their home, in their sheets. But that seems a little weird. Was there an incident that incited this? No hitting. But putting your hand on them and hitting your own hand was an acceptable loophole. The father convinced the kids that the heel or bit of the bread was the best and that kids had to take turns because entire loaves were going bad from both heels being snatched. I arrived with my friend and we weren't present when groceries were brought in. Older brother Tony jumped his turn and took a heel for his sandwich. My friend Noel jumped Tony with a hand on his shoulder and wailed on his own hand screaming about getting his bread, but You are never to touch the dining table with your hands or arms, however slightly or briefly. You are to sit straight up on furniture. You will never put your feet up, sit sideways, or lay down. You will absolutely never nap on the couch. You may sleep in your bedroom at night. And that is it. I don't like visiting my aunt's house very much. Neighbor's house for breakfast. They put powdered sugar and syrup on the table for waffles. I thought, oh yeah, I only get syrup at my house, and douse the waffles with powdered sugar. I pick up the syrup. We only use one or the other at this house. The mom says, I ate dry and tasteless powder sugar covered waffles. That day, one of my friends had a sheet/clipboard in the bathroom where he asked anybody who take a crap to record the day, time, and guessed length of the poop. Apparently he gives the winner a gram of weed every month, lol. If you are eating, and you drop your fork, everybody drops their fork. They all shared a towel after showering. Like one towel for everyone. For 1 or 2 days. When I visited I asked where the towels were, so I could shower after the pool. They looked at me like I had 2 heads. Explained the towel sharing situation. Because you're clean when you dry off, so it's still clean. Yeah, Mr. Friend's dad, I don't want to dry my face after you've dried your balls on it. My friend David was a tough guy, which was all the more cool that he chose to hang out with a scrawny nerd like me. We went back to his house once, and only once, which was literally 4 houses down the street from me. It was a small, normal house with a small comfortable living room. When I plopped into the big easy chair, David went white as a ghost. That's my dad's chair. Pause. No one's allowed to sit there. Pause. Ever. If he sees you in his chair, he'll bring the belt. Well, I was a small kid, but even I knew that some other person's parent wasn't going to be allowed to beat the crap out of me with his belt. So I said, nonchalantly, so what? He can't hit me. My tough guy friend, and, truth be told, a bit of a bully to other kids, just got paler and paler. Then he said, very quietly, he might not wallop you, but he'll wallop me instead. I hopped off that chair like a shot, and learned a crapload that day. Stayed with a neighbor during a family emergency. Estranged grandparent was deathly ill far away, and parents had to make some no-crap arrangements for child care. Neighbor had 5 kids. The dad had a 1 tub of water for the family rule. This was in a bathtub with a shower, and when a normal water bill for a large family would be under $40 a month, so I still don't get why. Dad would bathe, then mom, then oldest to youngest, guests last. The water was cold, dark with muck, and had a greasy film of skin cells on it by my turn. I was 6 or 7, and tried to refuse, but they shouted at me, and I gave in. I gagged the whole time. Seriously, frick you, Mark. You nasty ass swamp water douchebag. I was in a foster home from ages 5 to 7. They were religious and the rules were as follows. Women couldn't cut their hair, wear short sleeves after 5 years of age, could only wear dresses and nightgowns, even when swimming on vacation, and nobody could enter the home if wearing shorts. Pants were fine. The upside was the whole family ate dinner together every night and there was always dessert. As a kid coming from a home where food was not aplenty, I thought it was wonderful. I stayed in touch over the years, and went to the mom's 80th birthday party last summer. Lots of people were there in shorts, so the rules have obviously been relaxed over the years. One daughter even had hair a little below her shoulders, so that rule isn't enforced either. When I was probably 7 or so, there was a kid down the block. I think he lived with his grandparents, who were weirdly strict with water. No using the hose to play in during a time of sprinklers and water balloons to beat summer heat. And I think remembering him saying he'd have to pay $1 for a cup of water. My mom was very sick, brain tumor in the 70s. So all of us 5 kids were farmed out to relatives. We had this one awful aunt who refused to let my 4-year-old left-handed brother eat with his left hand. Every night I would watch my poor little brother silently cry out of frustration trying not to use his left hand to eat. Meanwhile, her left-handed daughter and husband sat at the same table using their left hands to eat. After a few months, I mentioned this to my left-handed grandmother, other side of the family. Grandma promptly drove over to Auntie Witch's house, rounded up all 5 of us, and punched Auntie in the face with her left hand. We stayed with Grandma from then on. God bless you, Gram. Unspoken. But I had a friend, and when we sat down at her family dinners we had to wait until the dad started eating before everyone else could. First meal I ate there I just dug in and everyone looked at me sideways until I stopped. This was 2013. I had a friend whose mother got upset every time I used the word jeez because it was used instead of saying Jesus, which I was unaware of at the time since I was 6. No attacking unarmed players in Goldeny. After taking an easy kill and being told of the house rule, I decided to go karate chop only and told them I was fine with being shot at while unarmed. They were fine with that adjustment to the rule until it turned out neither of them could hit someone running circles around them up close. I was then told I was cheating. I went to normal elementary school from ages 6-10 in South Compton. There was a white kid, let's call him Adam cause I forgot his name, whose house I had to go to for a group project. Now, mind you, I was an anxiety-filled autistic child, so it was scary enough to go to someone's house as it was. Well, apparently, the kid didn't tell his parents me and 2 others were coming over for the group project. He admitted that no one ever comes over and so he invited us without permission, probably to be rebellious. So, I rang the doorbell. The door opened, and the parents were standing there, extremely confused. Adam explained, and they were mad at him, but they looked at me and eventually let me in. Now, I'm half white, half Indian, and so, while it was obvious I was a kid of color, I was still good enough. So, I'm in the house. We are working on the project, and the doorbell rings. Parents are shocked cause they thought it was just me. The door opened, and standing were 2 kids. Both were black. The kids saw me and Adam and were about to walk in when the parents slammed the door in their faces and began shouting at Adam for inviting black people to their house. The rule was no blacks in their house. Living in South Compton, with a kid going to a school that was 80% black, I had a panic attack from the shouting, and they didn't know what to do, so they just told me to go home. I ran back to the shelter. We lived in a homeless shelter at the time, completely in shock. At the time, I couldn't fully comprehend what happened, having been in extreme anxiety, but looking back, it's just freaked up, but hilarious at the same time. I can't help but laugh and be mad simultaneously lol. My parents, for what it's worth, made me go to bed at 7 PM every night from the age of 4 until the age of 16, because I had to share a room with my kid brother. To this day I also have to go to bed at 10 PM when I visit them, because I have to walk through their bedroom to get to mine. It's an old house. Another weird rule they have is about bins. Most people have at least a separate bin in their kitchen and their bathroom, right? Maybe a few more all over the house just in case. Right? Wrong. My parents keep just the one single bin in the center of the kitchen/dining room, and the bin bag is changed once a week at the most. I think they maybe just can't be asked to go round collecting bins, and so this is their god-awful solution. Having a period in that house was a barrel of laughs, let me tell you. From the ripe old age of 11, announcing to the entire house, excuse me, coming through, used sanitary pad ready to go in the bin here. Out to the way dudes these days as an adult when I visit. I make a huge deal out of it until they realize how awkward it is and give me a bin for the bathroom. But as a 12-year, this was the most embarrassing, awkward crap ever, not to mention when we had guests round. They would be sat in the goddamn dining room, and I would be forced to shamefully walk past them into the kitchen, used pad in hand, to use the bin. That was some trauma right there. Frick, my current house has 2 bins in every room. I was friends with a very sheltered kid when I was 10. I was playing video games with him, and after I got wrecked in a particular game, I exclaimed, "Oh man, what the hell?" My friend and his little brother both froze in terror after that, and the little brother ran out of the room fast. I asked my friend what was up, and he said very meekly, "We are not allowed to swear." The little brother came back and sat down, followed closely by some very loud stomping footsteps. My friend's mom came in the room and said, "Suppy Wolfie, did you just swear? There is absolutely no swearing in this house." Do I make myself clear? I was in 4th grade, which is around the age that you learn all the swear words and use them a lot because you think it's cool to swear. I was even on the fence on if hell was even a swear or not. but I let it slide and said, "Yes ma'am, I'm sorry." A little while later dinner was ready, so they called us to the dining room to eat. On the way over, I passed through the living room and saw a really big crazy looking sculpture. I pointed and asked, "What the heck is that?" Again I was met with a deafening silence as my friend looked at me with his mouth agape. "Suppy Wolfie," his mother exclaimed from the dining room. "That's it. You're out here. I told you. No swearing." Perplexed I replied, "What? I didn't swear." I said heck, not hell. That set her off even more. Heck is a swear word too, and since you're not respecting our rules then you need to leave. So, I walked home, and was never allowed back at their house. I stopped being friends with the kid, since it was already a bit of a stretch, based on how goody he was. A few years later, when I was in 8th grade, I finished my tennis practice after school, and I was leaving the school to walk home. I lived about 3/4 of a mile away. The kid was sitting outside of school on the bench, and he was quietly crying to himself. Since he was crying, I walked over to him and said, "Whoa, hey Tom, what's going on man? Are you alright?" In between gasps of tears he said, "My mommy is supposed to pick me up, but I don't know where she is." "What time was she supposed to pick you up?" 4 o'clock. It was 4:30, which meant he was on this bench for half an hour. Well, come on. You can walk with me. Your house is just a few blocks past mine. I walk home every day. It's no problem. I can't. He was still crying and made these long gaspy cries when he talked. Why not? Sure you can. It'll take like 15 minutes and you'll be home. No problem. Come on. I'm not allowed to more crying. Alright man. I was agitated at this point. Have fun crying on a bench then. The kid was smart and did very well academically, but we are in our 30s now, and after college it seems like he never really did anything with his life. According to Facebook, he's not in a relationship, works at a grocery store, and still lives in his hometown, which makes me wonder if he ever even moved out of his parents' house. With how insulated his parents protected him, I would be surprised if he had the life skills to be able to order a coffee from Starbucks. I had a friend growing up who wasn't allowed to plug anything in, so basically anyone under 16 wasn't allowed to touch plugs at her house. I think we were 10, and I was definitely allowed to plug and unplug things at my own home. So this was really baffling to me. This dude that managed local bands had a rule that only vegetarians could poop in his toilet. Find somewhere else to poop if you eat meat. Visiting children for a sleepover had to bathe while supervised by the mom in retrospect. Horribly creepy. I was dating this girl that had this no shoes rule in her apartment. Okay, that's pretty common in a lot of countries. She was an excellent cook. She asked me to invite my best friend and his GF over, and she'd cook for us. My buddy is a little wacky, but when they got there and we told him the no shoes rule, he acted a little put out, like it was some big imposition to take your shoes off. A few weeks later the four of us were getting to be good friends and my buddy invited us over for dinner. When we got there he and his GF were not wearing pants. He was in boxers and she was in panties. He said no pants. We have a no pants rule in this house. Luckily my GF thought it was pretty funny and we complied. She did say that if I came up with a topless rule she was bowing out.